Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to our very first podcast. I am Adrian,
And I'm Ethan.
and today we're going to talk about the uncertainty reduction theory. So, what is it about, Ethan?
So, uncertainty reduction theory basically states that by learning more or gaining increased knowledge of what the other person is, it provides a forecast of how a future interaction will turn out. Basically, the more you know them, the more likely you know what to expect when they react, and less you know them, the more uncertain you are. Is there any aspect of this theory that you can apply in a certain media like film, TV shows, etc.?
There is actually, and I have some notes prepared. So, the one I have is called Loki, which is a TV series released just around last June. It was created by Michael Waldron, and it stars Tom Hiddleston as Loki, Gugu Mbatha-Raw as Ravonna, Owen Wilson as Mobius, and Sofia Di Martino as Sylvie. But I'll actually focus more on the Loki and Sylvie characters since the theory revolves mostly around their interaction. So, by the way, have you seen it yet?
No, not yet.
Well, basically, it's about what happens to Loki after that scene in Endgame when Captain America and Ant-Man travel back to 2012 to get the Tesseract, and by accident, Loki was able to get his hands on it and escape. So this is about Loki's whereabouts after that. So what actually happened is Loki was able to go back somewhere in the past and was detained by the TVA who suddenly came out of like a portal. These TVA people stands for Time Variance Authority. They're like time travel policemen since we later learned that time traveling is actually a crime. So anyway, Loki goes to court, but instead of being executed, he gets offered to work in a case to catch another time traveler, which they call variants. So the reason they need him is because this variant is actually another Loki, but from a different timeline. And this other Loki is so smart that basically they've been chasing after it for decades. So Loki accepts the offer since obviously he couldn't accept that there's a superior version of him. So Loki eventually meets this other Loki and it turns out to be a female version of him named Sylvie. So he gets slightly intimidated by her because she has mind control abilities. And as we know, our Loki can only shapeshift and like make some illusions and stuff like that. So he wants her to join him and overtake the Timekeepers, which are like the creators of TVA. But she doesn't want to and just wants to basically kill the Timekeepers. She doesn't want any power or overtake the Timekeepers or like take control of the TVA. So she escapes through a portal, but Loki was still eager to go after her. So now Loki is motivated by some of the basic ideas of uncertainty reduction, which are incentive because he wants her to team up with him and to overtake the timekeepers, and deviance because, as we know, she's smarter than him and has mind control powers, which kinda scares him. So fast forward, they get stuck in like a dying planet, and they're forced to open up so they can trust each other and work together and find ways to escape. So during this part of the story, they showed some of the eight axioms of uncertainty, which are information seeking, self disclosure, and reciprocity, where Sylvie shares that she was actually apprehended by TVA as a child and has lived her whole life hiding, and she doesn't remember much from her childhood. And then Loki also shares how great his mother was and how she taught him magic tricks when he was young. So he shows Sylvie some of his magic tricks and she starts to be less cold towards him. So the it also shows the similarity aspect of them because they each share that they were adopted, except Loki was surprised that Sylvie's parents disclosed it to her way earlier than him. They also realized that their main similarity to being a Loki, like they made a conclusion what being a Loki is like after years of living, is that they're always destined to lose as a Loki. But they also realize that they always find a way to survive, which is also funny because it applies to the series, since we all know that Loki was already killed in Infinity War by Thanos, but the writers were able to find a way to resurrect him in this series. So, yeah, they slowly get comfortable around each other, and that's as far as I'm going to share in terms of the media theories I picked up in the series. So what about you? Is there any situation in a series or movie that like reminds you of aspects from this theory?
Yes, I have some as well. It's an anime called Nisekoi. It was released in winter 2014, adapted from the manga of the same name, written by Naoshi Komi. And it showed the four approaches from this theory, which I'm going to explain. So the first is the passive strategy. It is when you wait for the info to get to you without doing anything. And then there's the active strategy. It is when you ask someone about an info about someone else. The third one is the interactive strategy. It is when you directly ask the person about themselves. And lastly, the extractive strategy. It is when you search or stalk someone in order to get the info about them. So the anime I'm comparing it to is called Nisekoi, and it is a harem anime where the main character is Raku, who is a son of a yakuza, and he likes a girl named Onodera. Raku usually talks to Ruri, who is Onodera's best friend, to befriend Onodera, while Onodera waits for Raku to talk to her. As the story progressed, Raku later learned that there is another gang in the city, and now he is forced to fake a relationship with Shitoge, who is the daughter of the other gang, to prevent a gang war. Shitoge then falls for Raku, and she tries to get to know him by talking to him on their fake dates. The fake date is being done to avoid suspicions because one of the leaders of the Chitoges gang is suspicious of the relationship and distrusts Raku, which is why he sometimes stalks Raku to gain information. The four approaches can be applied in their story because Onodera is doing the passive strategy when she waits for Raku to talk to her and gain information about her. Raku is the active strategy because he tries to get info about Onodera from Ruri. Chitoge is the interactive one because she directly asks Raku about himself. And Cloud is the extractive one because he follows Raku everywhere to gain more info about him.
Okay, I think that's all we have for today.
Thanks for listening to our YouTube podcast. Hopefully, we get to do better discussion in the future.